In this video, we're talking about the iPhone XR. Believe it or not, this 6-year-old phone is still making waves. Why, you ask? Well, for starters, it's running iOS 18, the very same software you'll find on Apple's newest iPhones. And here's the thing, Apple got a lot of things right with this one. Even though it was often treated like the forgotten sibling, it brought that iconic colorful design, a surprisingly solid single camera that still captures sharp, vibrant shots, and let's be real, it just works. No fuss, no frills, just a reliable smartphone experience that keeps on ticking. But here's the real question, is it still worth it? Could this be the budget-friendly iPhone choice in today's sea of pricey flagships? Well, grab a seat because we're about to find out. It's been 7 years since the XR hit the shelves. In tech terms, that's practically ancient. Sure, the XR is running the same software as the latest iPhone 16 models, but that raises an interesting question. How does a 7-year-old device stack up against modern phones? If you're still rocking an iPhone XR, you might be starting to notice a few shortcomings. The XR was Apple's way of making Face ID and a nearly edge-to-edge screen accessible to more people. With its vibrant LCD display, yep, no OLED here, and the reliable A12 Bionic chip, it struck that sweet spot that made it an interesting choice back then. With iOS 18, the XR is packed with new customization options. You can see the changes right in the UI. The control panel shortcuts are a bit more rounded now, and with each press you get more tiles to choose from. And check this out, on the right side corner you've got 3 icons. One for favorites, one for music, and a third for connections and networks. And get this, you can now actually record and pause videos on the iPhone. Yes, seriously.
Wow.
But wait, there's more. You can now place icons and widgets wherever you want on the screen, which I guess is pretty big, right? Okay, let's be honest. I've gotta say, I love what Apple's done with theming. It's way better implemented than what One UI or Pixel has done. It looks more refined when you apply the dark theme throughout the UI. And if you go with larger icons, the icon names disappear, giving you this sleek, clean look. And yeah, if you leave everything on automatic, your home screen look will change based on the time of day. But if you prefer, you can toggle it on or off right in the control panel. Pretty neat, huh? And that standby mode. I honestly love it. But while these devices are staying relevant in some ways, there's one area where those generational gaps really start to show: the cameras. Apple made a bold move here, a single 12 megapixels wide lens. No telephoto, no fancy extras, just the basics. It wasn't about packing in features, it was about delivering good photos at a more affordable price. And for the most part, it worked. The XR's camera still holds up decently for casual photography, especially outdoors where lighting is your friend. But today, that single lens struggles in low light, and the lack of optical zoom is hard to ignore. Now, with iOS 18, the XR has gotten some improvements to its camera UI. The interface feels more streamlined, giving you quicker access to features. But here's the thing, while the UI is modern, the hardware just isn't built to fully take advantage of these features. Night photos on this iPhone. It can brighten up a dimly lit scene, sure, but the grain and noise, they're hard to miss. And what about video? Well, the iPhone X brought 4K video recording to the mainstream, and it's still surprisingly solid at 60 frames per second. It captures great detail in well-lit environments, and the stabilization holds up decently. But sometimes you start seeing its age, especially when you compare it to today's flagships with 8K capabilities and even cinematic modes. The videos can feel a little shaky, and the dynamic range is noticeably limited. So, if you're still holding on to an iPhone X or XR in 2024, and photography or video is important to you, you're probably feeling the gap between what these phones can do and what modern phones excel at. Don't get me wrong, these cameras were once leaders in their class. But in a world where phones are pushing the boundaries of computational photography and video, the XR has started to show its age, but still pretty impressive. Let's talk about portrait mode. This is where the XR still managed to impress. Sure, it's not quite up to the standards of today's computational photography, but it still delivers well-defined subject separation, especially in good lighting. With its single lens, it relies completely on software to create that blur effect. You might notice the edges getting a bit fuzzy around hair or complex backgrounds. And then there are the selfies. This is where both the X and XR struggle a little. The front-facing cameras can still produce decent shots, but in lower light the details start to get hazy, and the dynamic range just isn't what you'd expect from a modern phone. Shadows tend to flatten out, and highlights, they blow out easily. It's not bad, just not the crisp, refined selfies we're used to today. And here we are, almost in 2025. When the XR came along, it made some compromises. trading stainless steel for aluminum, dropping the telephoto lens. But the payoff? It was all about price and battery life. It was meant to be the people's iPhone. Now let's talk displays. Apple called it a liquid retina display, which is just a fancy way of saying LCD. It was bigger, 6.1 inches. But that's where the advantages stopped. The resolution, 828 x 1792. And while Apple did its best to make it feel like not a downgrade, colors were less vibrant. The contrast wasn't as punchy, and those deep blacks you got on the X. On the XR, they're more of a dark gray. Now, don't get me wrong, the XR's display was no slouch. It's sharp enough for most people, and Apple did a great job tuning the LCD to feel smooth with solid color accuracy. But today, next to the OLEDs of modern iPhones, it feels, well, dated. You can see the pixels if you look closely, and the lower resolution is especially noticeable when watching high-definition content or gaming. The XR's Liquid Retina is fine for everyday use, but up against today's OLED panels, it feels like a compromise, especially when you're watching videos or scrolling through apps. While it doesn't have the deep blacks of an OLED screen, the Liquid Retina display on the XR is still well suited for everyday use. The slightly rounded corners of the display complement the phone's design, providing a sleek modern look that feels great to hold. Overall, the XR's display offers a good balance of quality and usability, handling most tasks comfortably and delivering a visually nice experience, especially for those who are okay with the simplicity of an LCD screen. The iPhone XR was crafted with ergonomics and user comfort at its core, making it one of the most comfortable iPhones to hold and use for longer stretches. The aluminum frame is not only durable, but also lightweight, which pairs well with the glass back for a premium feel without making it too heavy. Despite the larger 6.1-inch display, the XR is well balanced and fits comfortably in hand. Its smooth, rounded edges rest naturally in your palm, giving it a secure, balanced feel that still makes it a pleasure to hold, even today. And then there's Face ID. It all started with the iPhone X. Sure, it wasn't perfect in those early days, but the XR refined it with faster sensors. Now, in 2024, unlocking your phone with just a glance is second nature. So, is it worth hanging on to the iPhone XR today? Well, that depends on what you need. The XR, with its big enough display and a good battery life, has aged surprisingly well. It was designed as the people's iPhone, and it still lives up to that role in some ways. If you've got the budget, you might want to consider upgrading to something like the iPhone 12 or 13 for more power and updated features. But if you're on a tight budget, the XR isn't a bad choice to hold on to for a while longer. It's no longer the top of the line, but it still works just fine for the essentials. If you're liking this content, consider subscribing to my channel. I am trying hard to hit that 10K subscribers mark, and having you join my community would mean a lot to me. Thank you.